Hey everybody, Invisiblekatana here with my review for The Bad Batch, Episode 15, Return to Kamino. So, of course, this was part one of our two-part finale, and it was good. It was a good start to a finale. It was a good episode in general. I mean, honestly, if it ended where they destroyed Kamino and then it was just like, hey, let's chase them down or do whatever, I still think it would have been the same, but they decided to kind of end, right in the action as if there was some sort of mystery, as if they'll, end up surviving or escaping. But I like the way it was handled. I thought it was a good first part, to the finale. It was a good episode, like I said, on its own. Anyway, of course, Naboo is here in, respect to the prequel planets. There it is. I was like, they're technically the sequels, but they're the prequels. You know what I meant. To the prequel planets, because no more Kamino, I would assume, unless they go back in season 2, which there's officially a season 2, which no surprise there. But unless they decide to go back for whatever reason to look through the wreckage of the destroyed city, I don't think Kamino showing up in Star Wars anymore. I think this was the end of Kamino, and I thought it was really cool, especially the end segment where, first off, you may fire when ready, great reference, and then they basically do a bombardment of the city, and it's like, here's all the locations. So they show the Bad Batch room from the first episode, they show the mess hall, they show the cloning tubes and everything, really the 3 locations we've seen that have any sort of aesthetic to them outside of a room with curved white walls to it. So I thought that was cool. I was like, okay, that's cool to have, the music swelling and everything, and it's just everything's empty. All the clones have been cleaned out. The Kaminoans have all been taken. We saw their positions where it's like, I don't need a politician. They didn't actually kill him, but I don't know where that guy is. But they got the doctor. And I like the way they handled it. I was like, this is pretty cool. It was a decent action episode. It was definitely more for the emotion and the drama of it than it was the action. But of course, they ended it out, and it was a decent little action set piece with Crosshair and the rest of the Bad Batch actually having to team up. But I like how they handled it. It was very simple. They're going to come here. They're going to try to save them. They'll know it's a trap, but it doesn't mean anything. They're going to come try to save them anyway. And that's exactly what happens. They get to Kamino, and Omega is just busting out information like, hey, if we go here, there's this super secret landing pad. Just get real close to the water. They take a pneumatic tube to this to the lab of who I assume is the doctor that was always kind of treating her like she was her own child, and not the doctor who got shot on the episode with Cad Bane and Fennec. I doubt she was talking about her, but she was also sad. So I'm like, maybe that's who she was referencing. I suck at names, especially brand new characters who are in 2 episodes. So it seemed like because she was sad that it could have been her, oh, I saw her die in front of me. But it also easily could have just been the other doctor that she cared about, because she, as far as she's concerned, she'll probably never see either of them again. And also, everything's cleared out. They may have killed her. It's the Empire. It seems simple to just be like, they probably killed everybody. So she was sad, but I was also like, I don't know if that's the one that she saw die or just the one that she might not see again. So either way, it was one of the doctor's offices, and she references the fact that that is pretty much the home of the Bad Batch as well as Omega. This is where we all started. This is where our mutations come from. And she says, I was there too. So I thought that was interesting. And the way she said it made it kind of seem like she was out of her tube, which is why she knew about them and they never knew about her. But I thought that was pretty interesting. This is where Clone Force 99 pretty much started up. So I thought that was interesting. I was like, that's kind of cool that she mentioned that. This is exactly where everything started. They seem super shocked, which once again, I guess kind of leads to the secret factory sort of element of it. So I thought that was weird. I was like, they were all super shocked. Is that true? And I'm like, well, you guys know that you were special clones. Is it that crazy that you weren't just in the normal pods? It didn't seem that big of a deal to me, where it's this is where your mutations were. And it's okay, so they were in different pods from the big chamber of pods. I didn't see the big difference, so I was kind of confused as to why it seemed so dramatic. A record being is that true? And it's does it matter? You knew you were from tubes. You're all clones. It just seemed weird to me, where it was okay, so you didn't know the room you grew up in. It just seemed weird to me that they even cared about that. I'm just oh, okay, it was different than the cloning pods, but they just seemed holy crap, it's different from the cloning pods. I know that's different, but it just seemed weird to me personally. I would love to know your thoughts on that, but I was just I don't see how this is a big deal sequence, or maybe I just missed something and I just didn't understand it. But I'm okay, this is where they got their mutations from. The biggest shock really was the fact that she knew that that's where they were as well. That was the part that was shocking, but it was just, they seemed more surprised by the fact that it was that specific room. So I'm just I don't understand why it matters. You knew you were different, but even if you weren't, what is, you're just pods in a different place. I don't know. But anyway, they go through, they continue with the constant cat and mouse game of oh, his beacon's gone off here, now it's moving, so we have to go here. And of course they end up back at the training room, and I thought that was cool. It was a great way to end, or almost end the season, where they kind of bookend it with another epic battle sequence, which also ends up with them teaming up with Crosshair, doing like a full Bad Batch team again. So I thought that was actually really cool, and I like the way it was handled. Of course, very surprising. This whole episode, the greatest parts were definitely the emotional stuff, like Hunter talking to Crosshair, and then them having that final moment where it's like, all right, they're all surrounded, and so it's like, I'm gonna give you a chance. He's like, you guys didn't give me one, but I'm gonna give you a chance. And so I was like, all you have to do is join. It's it's Star Wars. It's very cyclical. But he was giving them the classic like, join me and we can like like it was very close to the Vader stuff, because technically he wasn't trying to be like join me and take over. He was just saying join me and we can be a part of the Empire. But it was an interesting little moment, and then it's like, all right, why should we trust you? And then of course he shoots his little like the little reflective mirrors, kills all the stormtroopers. They were in like amazingly perfect position. Not a single one of them was like hit in the arm or anything like that. And I guess you could chalk that up to him. I know he's a crack shot, but I'm like, I guess good soldiers follow orders. So they were he was like, hey, like, all right, this is where my mirrors are. Like, you stand right in that exact position. You guys, I guess that's how it went. Because I'm like, it seems interesting that they weren't even remotely like slightly off. Like, I know he's a great shot, but he also couldn't possibly have counted for like just minute things. Like, I know he's shooting and it's supposed to be like it's gonna go in a square and kill everybody, but it's also like nobody was like an inch to the left or anything like that. Like, he just noted it was just great. So it's just like, okay, that's it. Like not even a slight positioning sort of difference, and it was just like everything was cool that whole time. So I was just like, that seems oddly perfect, because he set the mirrors up. It's not like the mirrors moved; they were in one position. It's just like I said, it was just like, okay, yeah, like it makes sense that they'd be there, but it was absolutely perfect. It wasn't like anybody was just a little bit too far back and it missed nothing. It went through everybody. They all dropped dead. Sweet scene. But I was also kind of just like, even if he planned it and told them where to stand, it still, just in my head, I was like, it still seems oddly perfect. Because he obviously had to do that before they ever got there. So it just seems weird, like, how do you even have time to get there ahead of time and all this other stuff? But who knows how long he had it planned for? Because another thing with that, of course, was, well, how did he do that if there's Order 66 and this is like, it's different from the stuff with Hera where it was like, that one clone I had mentioned. I was like, okay, well, this doesn't really pertain to the Jedi and they're not technically like absolute traitors to the Empire or anything. This is just like a really big misunderstanding where things were working out and then they're starting to fall apart. It wasn't just like these guys are committing high treason. Like, Crosshair is in it 100%, where it's like he knows what's going on. Good soldiers follow orders. Like, everything was 100%. Order 66. It's chaos time. And then it was like, well, how did he pull that one off? And then it's like, yeah, I got rid of my chip. And then he just doesn't say when. It's just like, does it matter? It's like, of course it matters. It's like, I got rid of it. And he does specifically say, like, a long time ago. And it's just weird. It's just super weird. And it's just like, okay, this is just who I am. I'm like, I don't really know what that means. I don't know what that's going to lead to, especially going into the next episode where they actually have Crosshair. They knock him out. I thought for sure he was going to shoot him. I thought it was going to be over and it was just going to be like, boom, that's the end of Crosshair. But he knocks him out. I don't know where they're going with that. I'm very curious. I would love to see them kind of just play around with that concept of him being a loner and just kind of going off to do his own thing, because he does want to be with the Empire, which I definitely don't see working. Like, he could easily say, like, yeah, I got out of that situation. They took me out and kidnapped me or whatever. But I'm like, the dude didn't care. Like, the whole thing was like, all right, pull everybody out. We'll leave the clones to die, with each other. He does not care about Crosshair. So I am curious how that story element's going to play out with Crosshair being like stuck in the middle. And then it's like, well, you kind of abandon your friends who still care about you at least a little bit. And then you're trying to side with the people who could not possibly care less about you. So I don't know what they're going to do with this character. So there's a lot of possibility. Like, he's in the perfect position to, end up being a bounty hunter. I would love to, Cat and Crosshair. It's a dumb name, but Star Wars Cat and Crosshair. They could do it. Cat Bane Crosshair. Duo team up bounty hunters. I'd like it. I'd watch it. I just want Cat Bane. That's all I need. But they knock them out. They're escaping. Of course, that's where we get on bombardment. We get our dramatic sequences of all the empty locations, and then of course it's just Human Fire when ready. Everything's chaotic, and then the episode kind of cuts off as they're trying to make their grand escape. So I like the episode for sure. I'm excited for the official season finale. I'm curious what they're gonna end up doing. I wonder if it's gonna have like a more definitive ending, because especially now that we know that we're getting a season 2 officially, even though it's fairly obvious. I do wonder how the episode's actually gonna end. Like, will they end and it's just like boom, that's the ending, and there's no kind of lead up to what comes next, or will they do kind of an ending and then it leads into season 2? Because I feel like typically with Star Wars, at least as far as the shows, they tend not to do that. They tend to end like fairly definitively. Like especially like if you watch Rebels and stuff like that, like even Clone Wars, they did it as well. Where a lot of times the season would end, and it's kind of just like, all right, that could kind of just be it. There were rarely moments where a season would end, and then it would be like this insanely epic cliffhanger or anything. Like there would be some stuff that would happen where you're like, oh, what happens next? Like it's crazy. I can't wait to see what happens next. But technically, the story elements within themselves, like whatever the overarching story of the season was, it comes to an end, and it's like, okay, I could easily see the potential of the next story, but they don't do like, most TV shows would do, or some really stupid movies where they end and it's clearly like, here's a teaser, like some random person pops up in the last minute and a half, and it's like, to be continued. Like I don't think they'll do that because they tend not to work that way. When it comes, I think The Mandalorian, perfect example. Like the seasons stick to themselves, but there's obviously potential. Like you can clearly see, like, okay, aside from the obvious reference to a completely new series that was already in the works, aside from that, they don't tend to do teasers where it's like, oh, here's what's happening next. It's just like, it ends, and it's like, okay, well, that could literally end, and it's like, wow, and then they just go off and do space stuff. So how they end it, the story of the season tends to wrap up, but they always have those little tags where it's like, okay, you can pull on that, and that's where we have season 2. So I'm curious what they might show off or who they might reference. It would be cool to see Hondo. Like he always pops up in everything, so we gotta have that, because I thought we were getting it this season. We didn't have Hondo. We have to have Boba. I mentioned that. I was like, especially with the reveal from this season that she's 100% Boba Fett's sister. Like that's 100%. That is who they are. They are the children of Jango Fett. So I'm like, he has to be in there. So that has to be something that they're already thinking of for season 2. Who knows? We got that glimpse of Cad Bane. He obviously has to come back. Like there's no way he doesn't come back. Who knows what they do with Fennec Shan? Because it seems like they could easily throw that little bit of a rivalry in there. I don't know. I'm excited for it. I'm looking forward to season 2, and like I said, we'll see what happens with the official ending of this season and how they kind of play things out as far as the end and what they hint at and possibly lead to for season 2. But all in all, I'm definitely excited for it. I would love to see Ahsoka pop up in season 2. That would be great, just to see how they kind of play around it, just add to her story. But I like this episode. I'm excited for part 2 and however that's gonna play. Like honestly, I don't know what they're gonna do unless they attack the Empire and they try to kill this dude at the end of the season, because of course I don't remember his name. But unless they go after him, it's just up in the air. Like I'm like, I don't know what the actual story is going to end up being for this very last episode. So I'm super curious, because I'm like, this was the drama, crazy action part. They literally ended the storyline of Kamino within the Star Wars universe. Like I said, unless they just randomly go back to it later. But for now, that was like the definitive ending of Kamino. What are they saving for the finale then? So I'm definitely curious. This was a good episode. I'm excited for the actual finale. But of course, we'd love to know your thoughts on this one. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, your least favorite parts about it. And of course, going into the actual season finale, what do you guys want to see? What do you think we're going to see? What do you hope we see? What don't you want to see? I always like hearing that. Like, what do you guys just not want to see happen? Maybe some people are just like, please don't let Sid show up. I don't know. I like Sid. I don't mind her. Excuse me. She got a reference, but they don't actually show her. But I don't know. It'll be interesting. Maybe they'll take Crosshair to her. Like, I just don't know. Like the way they do it is like, obviously they're gonna escape Kamino, but are they gonna get chased down for 30 minutes? Like, because they're probably gonna find out like, oh, there's a ship escaping. That's the clones. Let's track them down, or let's not track. Like, they're just 5 clones. They can do a lot. So maybe they'll go after them. Maybe they won't. It's up in there. They probably would though. But I would love to know your thoughts on it. Like I said, so please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.